Alright guys, I was reluctant to make this video, but after this experience, if I can prevent someone else from having a repeat, I will give you guys my my story. So, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half, actually I can look on the date here. This is my, one of my receipts. Pensacola diesel fuel injection, and this is the warranty. On here it has the date. Let's see, when this was bought. This is a warranty, 10-day warranty, manufactured injectors, blah blah blah. They're gonna charge me. Oh, okay, here we go. 2023. So actually, this is over a year ago. Okay, almost 2 years. Been fighting this battle for over 2 years. So my 7.3 had a I have a 1999 7.3. It had a miss, an intermittent miss. I said, all right, maybe it's time to get some new injectors. And I figured, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll try to rebuild them myself. And long story short, I screwed up one of them. You know, it ran great, and then when it got hot, I was still having a miss, even worse than before. So I said, you know, I'm just going to go to a reputable company and get some remanufactured injectors. Well, that was probably one of the worst mistakes I've ever made in my automotive repair career. So after probably 30 injectors coming out of this company, I've been trying to get a good set. What I finally did is I broke down all the ones that they sent me versus the ones that are currently running in the truck, and I just started looking at what they did here. So like, here's an injector. Okay, so what they do is when these injectors wear out, this armature right here bottoms out on this surface right here, and you end up with no clearance. It's supposed to be a little bit like a 1/4,000th, 2/1000th of an inch in between there. And so what they'll do is they'll put a washer in here, a little shim. The shims look like this, these little shims. And they're super thin. They go, you know, anywhere from 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, whatever it needs to get your feeler. Where'd my feeler went? I got a couple feelers in here. I mean, I'm not going to demonstrate the whole process of rebuilding these, but what this company has done is they've taken these junk injectors or worn out injectors out of trucks, and this is a kind of a different style. I only got one of these injectors with this plate on here, but what I noticed is when your armature is so out of tolerance that it requires a 1/4,000th of an inch shim in there, like the biggest one you can put, the injector is pretty much done. And when you look at the other, there's a lot of resources online on how to rebuild these injectors, put shims in them and put new seals and stuff on the internals. One of the things you're supposed to do is when you shim the armature, which is this piece here, you're also supposed to put some shims in the solenoid. You put 4 shims, so if you're going to raise this up, you got to raise this up. Otherwise, you will risk impacting the armature, will risk impacting the solenoid. And what you end up with on some of these, let me see if I can find one. Here we go. So on this injector, let me take it apart real quick. I'm gonna have to do this one-handed. This is gonna be fun. Okay. Like how Milwaukee makes it impossible to get their little bits out of their little organization tray here. All right. And I just tapped my bit, and of course I lost it. All right, here they are. All right. So that's the wrong one. It's a T20 if you're interested in knowing what size to put on there. All right, it's this one. So we're going to take off this, which is already kind of off, but yeah, I know there's one stuck on there. I got one hand here. Okay. So this one says mechanical interference damaged armature plus cracked solenoid. Okay, so those are my notes. Okay, well, I'm going through all these garbage that they sent me. What I mean by cracked solenoid is, I don't know if you can see that. Come on, focus. There we go. It's been dropped right on the connector. You can see it's split right here. This one's not so bad, but there are others that are even worse than this. At least the corners are intact on this one. Okay, look at the bottom of this solenoid. The armature has slammed into the solenoid right here. And you can see the witness mark on both the solenoid and the armature. And when it gets marred up like that, it's like mechanical interference here. When it gets marred up like that, these tolerances are no longer, like, your solenoid's not supposed to make contact with the armature. It'll ground out. You end up with IDM codes and all kinds of garbage. So this solenoid's essentially trash. And what they did is they lifted up the armature by putting a shim in there and did not put any shims inside of here to lift up the solenoid. So they made the problem even worse. I honestly, like, I put these in my truck. The truck ran so terribly bad. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This one's still got their rebuild garbage on there, the protector. I haven't run this one. I just checked it out to see, you know, what's going on with it, to see if it's a candidate, and I ain't putting that in my truck. No, thank you. So, what was the big issue is that when I put these injectors back, their first set that they sent me in my truck, I got all these IDM codes, and I'm thinking, man, did I screw up my wiring or something? And after many hours of debugging and investigation and checking voltages and whatever, ohms at the IDM connectors, all that other junk wiring, I finally concluded that it's got to be the injector. So I said, you know what, I'm going to start doing, like, I had them get me another set and replace the injectors out, gave me different codes. The truck ran different. Every single set of injectors they sent me, the truck would run different, and all of it was bad. I get full-on misses, I get running like crap, idle, bouncing around, whatever. So it's just been a nightmare. All right, what's wrong with this one? Cracked solenoid, dead, bent armature. Okay, this is another situation, right? Here's another one where, like, so if you look at this solenoid, let me see if I can get it focused here. You can see it's been dropped. There's a big chunk taken out of the solenoid right here, like it landed hard on something right here. They just dropped this solenoid on the ground. And what do I mean by bent armature? Well, you take off the solenoid, take a look at the armature, and you get your feelers in here. I'm a mess now. I had a mess before, now it's worse. Alright, here they are. Alright, let's dump this out. Come on, there we go. Okay, so I got two feelers here. One's a 2,000th and one's a 4,000th. And we got a bent armature, is the claim, right? So let's take this, put it on its side here. When it's bent, what will happen is you start with the 2,000th. You get good clearance on one side, but when you go in on the other side, okay, so this side's really loose, and this side's got a lot of drag. So this armature, you probably can't see it. Maybe you can. Okay, ooh, there we go. There's that. Yeah, you can't tell just by looking at it, but you get different readings depending on which side you measure, and you can tell this armature, the top of it here, is all rusted out. I don't know what that's all about. But another thing is you can tell, like, that there's machining marks on these injectors from when they spun them in the vise. You're supposed to have a tool. I have, you know, when I said I rebuilt them, they sent me this crappy kit. See, this thing's supposed to grab right here and go into these two protrusions here. It's supposed to go inside of these holes and hold the injector in place, right? But if you spin it hard enough, it's going to pop out, and then you end up with these massive marring marks on the injector. Some of these have been dropped, like they've just been manhandled. I mean, these are, you know, rebuilding these is a science, and what they've done here is really criminal, actually. This whole set cost me, I think, around $1,200, plus all the time, 2 years worth of time. I don't know how many times I've had my truck torn apart, and all the garbage that I went through when I was doubting myself and saying, oh, my wiring's screwed up, I'm going to buy a different IDM. You know, I got an extra IDM up here. It's just absolute nonsense what these guys have done. And there's two lessons, right? One is Pensacola diesel is a total scam ripoff. Don't ever buy anything from these guys. And the second one is don't doubt yourself. You know, if you do your diagnostics, but at the end of the day, don't blow a bunch of money on because you're doubting your workmanship. You do some amount of work on your truck, car, whatever. Something ain't right. Whatever the part you put in either didn't get installed right or it's a defective part. Especially if this is remanufactured garbage. Remanufactured 7.3 injectors are not something you just want to amateurish. This takes a skilled this takes a skilled shop to rebuild these. And they said they tested them. No, they didn't. I guarantee you they didn't test these. Maybe they flow tested them somehow. I don't know how they would do that without a head or some specialized unit to put these into. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. And good luck, guys. If you're in trouble with your 7.3 injectors and you think about rebuilding them, you can do it. You need a good, clean environment. Maybe there's a whole different video for that. And there is better videos than what I can do online anyway. But it is possible to rebuild them. And I would actually even recommend it if you do a good job. It took me 18 hours to do all 8 of my injectors. And when I got them in the truck, what I sent back to them for core charges were in better condition. The truck ran better than what they sent me. And I'm still fighting the truck. Obviously, this is, you can see I've just went through all this today again. Finally, I broke down. I said, you know what? I'm going to look at every single one of these apart and find out why the hell I can't get my truck to run right. So anyway, I finally nailed it down. They're sending out injectors in 3 different or 4 different conditions, right? Armature's screwed up. There's too much tolerance, not enough clearance between the armature and the body of the injector. The solenoids are bad, or the armatures are bent. I haven't had a problem with the sealing. The internal sealing I haven't had a problem with, and the O-rings that they're using, no problems there. Even the manhandling of the injector itself doesn't seem to be too much of an issue. It comes down to these little fine clearances and the electronics, the digital components, like the solenoids, that are the problem for these rebuilt manufactured injectors. Anyway, good luck, guys.